we can say some of the guys who propounded some of the theories, like let's say Constantine. Who presided
and then we can get back to that as well. Yes.
Yeah, he existed.
Yes,
of course.
Wait. But why are you willing to accept that Constantine existed but not Jesus? What's the difference here? Because the same pieces of evidence that you will need for Constantine are the same as Jesus. He's in writings. There's iconography of him.
It's not the same.
And there's sayings of him as well. This conversation is going to be interesting, right? The only reason is my friend here doesn't actually believe. Do you mind if I talk about not believing that Muhammad is actually a real person?
On who?
Do you mind if I talk about what you said last week about Muhammad not being a real person? Do you mind?
We're talking about Jesus here.
I know. Okay, all right. Very well. Okay, no worries. Yeah, sure. Okay, so we're going to talk about if Jesus is actually or was actually a real person or not. So, because my friend here doesn't believe so.
Yeah,
so my friend, go for it, man. Go for it.
So my stance is that the Jesus Christ of history, the one that people call the Son of Mary, I'm of the opinion that individual never existed as a real living person. And I'm not the only one of that belief. There are many researchers, scholars who also think so.
Right.
For instance, we have a PhD by the name of Dr. Richard Carrier, who is also of the opinion that Jesus Christ is ahistorical. What do you have to say about that?
Sure. So, I mean, that is actually, from what I understand, to be more of a 19th century critique of Christianity. One where, with the spread of modern day atheism, the discrediting of Jesus was seen as something to rock the Christian faith and sort of cast it away as being logical. But actually, from what we know now concerning the person of Jesus Christ, he happens to be the most certain individual of antiquity, meaning from 1 BC up until now, there is no one around between the year between the year 100 BC and 100 AD who is more documented than Jesus. So he even beats out people like Caesar, coincidentally.
How do you give evidence that Jesus was more documented in history?
Right.
And I'm not talking about people in the 5th, 6th, 7th centuries speaking about a Jesus.
Okay.
That's because they are speaking about an eponymous mythological character who they ascribe to. That's not proof of a Jesus existed.
Okay.
So how do you prove
that
there was a Jesus?
To address the second point first, in the 5th, 6th, and 7th centuries, then yes, you start seeing a lot more mythology surrounding Jesus. We in Christendom, we classify these people as heretical groups. People who would make claims about Jesus like he's a demigod, like he fled to Japan or fled to France and had a family. You see a lot more of those, but we have an orthodox view of Jesus Christ that has maintained since the 1st century.
And what's that?
Directly, the orthodox view being that he is the begotten Son of God. He is also one with the Father.
No, wait. Where did you get that from?
Okay, so this is obviously gotten from scripture. Before Scripture, this is what was taught by the disciples. So the disciples were actual people, historical figures.
How did you know it was taught by the disciples?
Because we can attribute them. Because we have a sort of like a better term, like a chain of the tradition being passed down from people who at the top of the chain were said to be disciples of Jesus Christ, and then who also taught other epistles and disciples.
Yeah, but
how do
you know that? You don't know that until you had a Christian Bible given to you.
No. So that's one misconception. Before the canonized Bible was formed, these beliefs were already held. And we know that they were held because we have churches in different parts of the world, in Syria, Egypt, Ephesus, Antioch, who affirmed these beliefs in the 1st centuries before we had the Bible.
How do you know they affirmed those beliefs?
Because we have the churches, and if you believe in any kind of like historical evidences, you can go to the churches and then they can show you indications dating back as far as the 1st century that they had a belief, whether it be icons, text, tablets that they held in the first century. Yes.
So they had churches,
Yes.
they had beliefs.
Yes.
But a church, the English word church, comes from the Old High German cirx or curse,
Okay.
which means a circle. It does not
Okay.
necessarily mean what we would consider a Christian church today.
But
It
actually-
was just a temple
Okay.
where people go in and worship.
But
so
actually-
when you say that they had
Right.
icons,
Okay.
Iconography is
Yes.
not proof that there was a living, breathing Jesus that walked around the first century.
But it's an
not-
indication
that's not
in the same
proof.
way.
That simply means that they had mythological iconography. That's not proof of a Jesus. So
Right.
unless we come to the Council of Nicaea in
Okay.
325 AD,
Okay.
we do not have a Nicene Creed, a Niceno-Constantinopolitan
Okay.
Creed.
Okay.
And until we come to the Council of Ephesus,
Okay.
we do not have a Jesus.
Okay.
So and
That's
then
incorrect.
Even after that, we had a lot of people arguing about the homogeneous creed, etc. All of these things were going on. So you're acting as if
Mm-hmm.
this idea of the Trinity has been in its exact form, in its pristine form, from time immemorial. That's
Okay.
not true.
Well, I would argue that it has been in that form since time immemorial. And this is something a lot of people get wrong. So we're talking about Jesus in particular as a historical figure and not quite the Trinity. We can definitely diverge into that if you'd like at some point. But in accordance with Jesus, iconography of Jesus, writings of him, that date back to the first century, are proofs of Jesus, as they are proofs, for example, when we look at Roman busts of Caesar, that Caesar existed. Because we have images of Caesar as well as stories and documentation of him as well.
Well,
when it comes to the council,
we have images of Zeus.
Absolutely,
Does
right?
that mean Zeus existed?
It means that people believe that Zeus existed,
No,
but
it doesn't mean.
It
means,
does.
It means it's proof that there were people
Yes.
who believed in a Zeus.
Yes.
And you see, what a lot of people do is when
Yep.
they quote Josephus as trying to say that, Jesus existed, you're just providing evidence that there were Christians in the first century. Fine, I'm not saying there were no Christians, but it doesn't mean there's Jesus. That's not proof that there was Jesus.
the church, the circle, starts with Jesus. There is no other person that you can attribute the church to other than Jesus. And the church isn't just a building, like you said, circle. It's a group of people.
It's a group of people.
Yes.
I'm not saying there were no Christians, but there was
But-
no Jesus.
but,
That's not proof that there was a Jesus.
no,
If
but
I start a
Christianity
community
is
right
proof,
now,
yes?
if I start a group
Yep.
right now and I say, let's say the Church of Scientology,
Yes.
they believe in all these beings.
In
right?
L. Ron Hubbard, yep,
exactly.
yep.
So these beings, it doesn't mean that these beings existed. If I go back
Okay.
to the 1980s, 1970s, Scientologists were there. But does it mean that their gods existed? Does it mean
Not
that they
necessarily.
came into some being came from outer space and then came into planet Earth? It's
Right?
not proof of that.
If enough proof was not provided by the being, then we cannot go by the assertion or take a high confidence position that the being existed. That's the difference. Whereas with Jesus Christ, if we did not have a Jesus, we would not have disciples who will then go across the world, or at least the Roman world, and spread the message of the gospel.
So how did we have Ron Hubert then? How did we have him?
L. Ron Hubbard?
Yeah. How did we have him?
Okay, so for those who don't know,
do we have it?
L. Ron Hubbard is a fiction writer from the 20th century, and he is the founder of the ideology of Scientology, an idea that we're basically brought to Earth by an alien.
Scientology
Right?
has disciples. Why do they
Okay,
have disciples?
so it is you can take a high confidence position that L. Ron Hubbard existed in the same way you can with Jesus.
No,
for that reason.
No.
Yes, absolutely.
We can say
Yes.
some of the guys who propounded some of the theories, like let's say Constantine.
Okay,
who presided over
and
the
then we
Council of
can get back to
Nicaea.
that as well. Yes.
Yeah, he existed.
Yes.
Of course.
Wait.
Now-
But why are you willing to accept that Constantine existed but not Jesus? What's the difference here? Because the same pieces of evidence that you will need for Constantine are the same as Jesus. He's in writings.
It's not.
There's
not the
iconography
same.
of him,
It's not. The same.
and there's sayings of him as well.
No, Jesus would be akin to the being that Hubbard was talking about.
Oh no, he wouldn't be. He wouldn't be. He's an actual historical being, and that's what I'm trying to tell you. So in particular, the Nicene Creed that you mentioned. So a common misconception that I see amongst people is that they think that in the Nicene Creed, they think that is where the Bible was created.
No, I didn't say that was the Bible.
Okay,
no.
right, but you said that there was no Jesus until the Creed in 431,
So
right?
they were arguing
Yes.
about whether Jesus had a human body,
Yes.
whether he was just a spirit, whether he was a spirit and a human.
Yes, so the dual
whether-
natures, yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
So they were arguing about these things. These things
Right.
were not settled
Okay.
until much later.
Yes. But the fundamental understanding is that the person of Jesus was understood to be an actual historical person all the way back in the first century.
No, there were some
And-
people that were still saying he was a spirit, no different than Osiris.
Well,
Was floating around.
okay,
so you
very
see,
well.
and this is
So-
what Richard Carrier says.
Okay.
That the original Jesus, if you go back to the older sources, he was a spirit that would come to people and give them messages. So Jesus was no different than Angel Jibril
Okay.
at the time.
So-
the
so-
Muslim Angel Jibril that came
Okay.
to Muhammad.
Right.
That was what Jesus was.
Okay.
He would come to you and give you a message, and
Right.
that is why he appeared to the disciples.
Okay.
After his death, when he became a spirit.
Okay.
They didn't see him they didn't get the message when he was living. They got the message when he was a spirit.
No, so I think okay. So Richard Carrier here is really picking at straws. So yes, Jesus appeared to Paul as a spirit or in a vision, but to the disciples as a person. Because if you read the account, it says that they asked to touch the wounds in his hand. You cannot touch the wounds in the hands of a spirit.
So how did they get the message of Jesus?
They got the message of Jesus because Jesus was an actual person who walked with them for 3 years of his ministry. So if Jesus appeared to them as a spirit post the resurrection,
post.
they wouldn't know who he was.
It was post.
They wouldn't know who he was.
And
So
anyway, I'm
yep,
just humoring
okay.
you with this.
No,
it's
no.
not like
That's
the
fine, that's fine.
disciples existed as well. They're all not
Okay.
real. If you look at Matthew,
Okay.
we have a secret society in Egypt called Matthew. And Matthew, they have all of these beliefs.
But can you prove that this is secret society go all the way back to the first century? Can you prove that? I don't think you
They
can.
go all the way back to the time of Cometius.
Sorry?
All the way back to the pyramids. What you talking about?
Oh, okay. Well, that is a that is a very
All
like
the way back.
large
All the way
deviation, right? Because effectively now you're telling me that Matthew, or the idea of Matthew, assuming that this group is related to Matthew, is as old as the pyramids, which the pyramids are potentially 5,000 plus years old. So I don't think that the idea of Matthew goes back that far. And I don't think that it would make sense for a bunch of Nazarene Jews to then implement the idea of this Matthias, supposedly, as one of the disciples of Jesus.
No, there were no Jews. You see, Jews, all of these titles,
Yep.
these names did not exist until very, very recently.
You certainly had a kingdom of Judah, which is derived from.